I am all about talking about emotions and how you feel. And
Right.
if you don't like something, please tell us.
Something that I also need to be asking myself too is, are the rooms that I'm in or not in, do they align up with any of those things?
Yeah.
Right? If you take the letters and the word listen, and you spell the word silent, it's those same letters.
It's the same letters.
What's going on, guys? Hey, welcome back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. I'm sitting here with my host, Cameron Macias.
Hey, Coach Cam.
Special guest we'll introduce here in a second, but we want to welcome you guys back to the L3 Perspective, where we talk about life, where we talk about love, we talk about leadership. This is season 2, baby. Cam, I'm going to toss it over to you.
Yes, sir. Hey, as per the usual, you guys already know, like, love, share, comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like, because at the end of the day, we do it for you guys. And so if you're not giving us that feedback, we can't get better, which is what we're all about. So today, we have Jacob Garcia from Omega Cinema, okay? And I am very excited about this. We've been trying to make it happen for the last couple months, but as you guys know, we be rocking and rolling, busy as hell. But we're here in their studio today. So that's something we also want to highlight for you. We're going to allow Jacob to. But with that being said, Jacob, we appreciate you joining us today, brother.
Yeah, pleasure's mine. Thank you guys for thinking of me and reaching out, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. So reason why I reached out to you was because obviously Chris Pollard, mutual friend of ours who also was on episode 1 or season 1 with us. But for the essence of the podcast, Life, Love, and Leadership, we really want to highlight people who are really living in those spaces. So for you, I'm going to allow you to talk about your background, but, real estate agent, retired from real estate to follow your passion of opening up this studio. And I think a lot of people can find themselves in places where, I'm not saying you didn't like real estate, but maybe you really had a passion somewhere else, or maybe it was just an extension of something else you wanted to do. And so we want to bring people on the show to really highlight, to chase your dreams, to make things happen, to make the moves you need to make, and really live in that leadership for your life.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, starting off when I was 18 years old, my friend helped me come up with the idea of, like, what is it I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
I remember clearly we were in my friend's in his room, and it was the three of us. We grew up together as kids.
Yeah.
And he was asking me, at that time I was a freshman in college. I was going towards a career of becoming an elevator technician or some type of degree in construction.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And he was like, so, hey, what is it you want to do?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want to be I'll probably be like a construction manager. They make pretty good money. And he was like, no. He was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I was thinking actually becoming an elevator technician too, because they make like, $120,000 a year. And then he was like, no, bro, you're not hearing me. He was like, take the money away. Like, don't even think about money. Like, what is it you want to do?
Yeah.
And at that time, I did like this short, like little funny clip in high school. And it was really fun. It was naturally, like, it was like this little clip I did, a little skit with my friends. And
Yeah.
it was it was super easy for me, and it flowed, and it came out good from my perspective. And I was like, I think I would like to make movies.
Yeah.
And because I always was known for carrying around like a camera, like a camcorder, and I was always recording, because I was like really not obsessed, but like really into like captivating my memories.
Sure.
And so so he was like, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
And I was like, really, you think so? He was like, yeah, you should do that. And I got super excited because, like, just the week before, my other friend was like, oh, this new camera came out. It's the Canon 7D, Canon 5D, right? And that camera was, like, legendary at the time.
Then,
it was, like, award-winning, and it was, like, $2,500 for that camera. So then, and I showed him, and I was like, dude, look at this quality, right? Like, I can buy if I get this camera, I can make, like, short films and short movies.
Yeah.
He was like, that's what you need to do. So it took me a little over a year to save up, $2,500, which is a lot for me when I was 18.
18 at this time.
I was 18,
yeah.
So it took a while to save up. Minimum wage for me was like $6.75 at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it takes
it ain't $20 like it is.
Yeah. So it takes a while to save up a couple grand.
Yep.
And then I got the camera, and then I realized, like, I need a lot more than just this camera. I need like lighting, grip.
Yeah.
I need like proper sound.
Right.
Just the whole thing, and it was just like this pit of equipment I needed. And so ever since I was young, I come from a real estate family. My parents, their dream was to come to this country and to start some type of real estate business. And that was like, that was my mom's dream. And my dad was a contractor. He would remodel homes. And so they did that, and they pursued their dreams. And so I can see that they pursued their dreams. And my mom was always trying to get me into real estate. And ever since I was like 16, 17. And so I did my own path. I was like, no, I'm gonna do video production. So I did video production, you know, like weddings, quinceañeras. And then I was trying to find like my own way, I guess, trying to do it.
Yeah.
And I pretty quickly got burnt out.
Yeah.
And then I realized I was involved in some other things too. But then I realized that, so then when I was 18, I realized that, so when I was 18, I realized that it was really hard to like save up money and get money, right? My mom was trying to get me into real estate. I was trying to do my own path. I started doing video production. Yeah. And then later on, I realized that my cousin was growing weed, marijuana.
Gotcha.
And he had like this really fat operation, and I didn't smoke weed. Yeah. So I was like, it was funny because I was like super against it. And then my other cousin was like,
California?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just like, you know, always making fun of my friends, like, oh, that's why you can't even walk because you're so high, you know? And I was like that dude out of my friend group. And then my other cousin was like, hey, you should sell it because you make hella money because you don't smoke your own product. For sure. So then like my natural entrepreneur spirit was like trying to find different ways to make money. And I realized like you can make that much money selling weed. I was all in. And so I ended up joining an operation with my cousin. We had multiple grow houses. Yeah. This was when it was illegal. For sure. And then I almost went to jail like 3 times. Oh, yeah. And it was like a complete wake-up call. Like had the K-9 unit and the cops in my backyard. Oh, snap. They did not raid my house for some reason. And at that point, I knew it was like God telling me, like, this is the last chance I'm going to give you. Yeah. This is not who you are, you know, like, get out of this. And that's when I started to turn to God. And I was like, I can't do this. Yeah. So then I ended up shutting that operation down. And shortly after, my mom, at this point, I'm like 23, 25. Yeah. And my mom was explaining to me, she was like, get your real estate license. And so she took me to a seminar, an investing seminar, they were talking about like, you can flip this house and make $30,000 and like
one day.
We call it the rah-rah.
Yeah, right. And then when I went to that seminar, it opened my mind. I was like, you can really make this much money legally?
Like legally?
Yeah, you know? Yeah, because it was the same thing, but it was legally. Yeah. You know, and it was like the whole the legal game is so overrated because like it got to the point where like someone robbed me and it's like in order for you know, you gotta like handle business, and like I'm not even that type of dude. Exactly. Right. And it was just when I realized you can make money legally, it's like it's a whole different like man, it's so much better. And so anyway, so then I had a plan. She was like, look, why don't you get into real estate, save up your money, I'll teach you how to invest. Yeah. And you just do that for 10 years of your life, sacrifice 10 years of your life. Yeah. And then after that, mijo, I promise you can just do whatever you want. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So at 27, I got my license, and then I just started to sell real estate, and then I started to invest. She taught me how to invest. Nice. And and that like, and then my plan was to go and put myself into film school and all that, but it changed when I met my other. I knew my partner Colby. But I really wanted, during that time, like before I opened my business, right, which because it's only been a year old, there comes a point where it's like, a decade working on a plan is kind of a long time to do the next thing, right? For sure. So there's some parts where you're just like, am I dreaming or is this real? Yeah. Is this dream that I'm pursuing, is it like actually possible, or is it just kind of like in my head, right? Because you know, working for 10 years for something just seems like it takes a while to go by. Yeah. And then so when I met Colby, I was like, you know, I'm gonna pull the trigger and I'm gonna start this company and go into film production and pursue my dreams, because I was always thinking like, my mom and my dad, they pursued their dreams and they did it. Right. Yeah. And now they're retired and they're living in Mexico and they have whatever they want in a sense. Right. And And now it's like, okay, when I have kids, and if I don't pursue my dream,
Yeah.
and I tell my kids, oh, mijo, mija, you can pursue your dreams, right? Then if they go do it and times get hard, who are they going to look at?
Right.
They're going to look at me and my wife.
Yep.
And they're going to say, well, how did you get through those hard times?
Exactly.
I was like, oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, I was trying to give you a better life.
Yeah.
I was focusing on you, which is true, right?
For sure.
But I didn't want that to be. I didn't want that to be the conversation.
Yeah.
Like my mom, I remember she was going to college, raising us, being a full-time wife, and selling real estate.
Yep.
Like it was very inspiring when I look back.
Yeah.
And English is her second language.
Yeah.
And
So I have a question for you, because you had mentioned about like 26, 27-ish, and mom says, hey, you know, put your life on hold for the next 10 years. To most people, they're like, I don't want to put my life on hold for 30 minutes, let alone 10 years. So, like, at that age, like, what was going through your mind when mom was just like, hey, focus on this. I'll teach you the skill about different things, investments, but, like, put your life on hold, in a sense, for 10 years. Like, were you initially like, nah, I'm good? Or was it something like you trusted her enough to be able to trust the process?
Yeah, well, I pushed her off for 10 years.
Gotcha.
Right? So she told me when I was
trying when 18.
since I was 16. I remember I wasn't even legal to take license courses. I used to be 18.
Yeah.
Right.
But she knew my broker, you know,
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
she's worked with him for a long time. And so he was like, oh, let my son. He was like, oh, yeah, for sure. You know, second generation realtor, like, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I got in the courses, but I didn't take it serious. And
Gotcha.
so, like, since I was, like, 18, she was like, get your license, get your license.
Gotcha.
And then 27, I finally listened.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it took me 10 years to listen to my mom, and I realized, like, dang, mom is always right. You know?
Now I gotta give another 10. I gotta.
Yeah, now I'm 10 years behind, 'cause it took me
I'm
10
20
years.
years deep now.
Yeah.
Right, for real. You know what I mean? Like, I was thinking about that. Just imagine if I would have really took advice from my mom and my parents and stuck with that. Like, I would have been 10 years ahead of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but I was partying, trying to do things my own way.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it is. I mean, so 17 and a half years in the military, and I almost got kicked out like 3 times in the first couple years.
Yeah.
And I grew up with a single mom, so like my mom was my best friend. So she's the mom when you're going through hard times. Well, she's like, I didn't go through those types of hard times. Like, you're being stupid. And I'm like, oh man, like, you know, because I came home, I joined to get away from California, and you know, my mom was nice enough to tell me not to go to college because I didn't care about high school. And then I traded with someone, came back. So I have a career potentially, but I'm hanging out with all my old friends that have, you know, they're doing the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
My friends were chopping cars and doing all that type of stuff. And I just was like, oh, well, I'm going to be here, but I'm going to be like on the side here. And eventually I learned, like, you can't be on the side there. Like, you'll ruin what you have going.
Yeah.
But those life, like, I feel like most of us, there's a kick that happens at some point, and you listen to it or you don't.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, like, that kick was God. And when I was growing trees and doing all that stuff like that, I was just living like according to my own understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then when I turned 27, that's actually when I decided, like, I'm going to pursue God, not because my parents told me to, but I need to find out if this is real or not.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I can't be a man living in this world saying I believe and claim to know and love Jesus when I've never don't know nothing about him. I never read the Bible before. I just claimed to love it because my parents did.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really started to pursue and seek and read the Bible.
Yeah.
And it was just like the same obvious revelation of, like, if there's a building, then there's a builder, right? If
Yeah.
there's a painting, there's a painter.
Right.
Yeah.
Creation is so infinitely complex. It's like, it's obviously there's a creator, right? Who is that creator? And I started to find out, like, who is that really? And then, and that same logical deductive reasoning is the same I found in the Bible, and that's how I came to Christ. And that create like a new understanding, a new mind in my mind, and that's when I decided to, like, change and really listen to the people that love me, like my mom, my dad.
Yeah.
And that, like, just following Christ, like, changed my life completely.
Yeah.
I think when Cam first told me about you, and I looked you up, and I was kind of piecing together a little bit of your story. For me personally, that was one of the things that stood out, right? Because you were your story from a visual standpoint, like, and I know we'll get into Omega Cinema, from a visual standpoint, that was the thing that grabbed my attention, right? I didn't know you, but from a visual standpoint, it seemed like you were a man of good character, right? And who was a follower of Christ and all of that. And I was like, from there, I was like, I look forward to just kind of sitting and connecting with him, because I think when people find their purpose, right, and they can attach it to or anchor it to the thing that they believe in, I think that's where people start to see. Obviously, there'll be challenges, but I think that's where people will start to see more doors of opportunity to open up for them. So, I definitely appreciate that about you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Sure,
Thank you. Appreciate that too.
So getting to the point where you're like, now is the time.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
So it was, I remember I was on a job site with Colby, because Colby, he's one of my best friends. And
Shout out to Kobe.
Shout out,
by the
shout out
way.
to Colby, the man. Colby. Colby behind the switcher over there. You know, I've always wanted to work with Colby. Like, he's one of my good friends. Always makes me laugh. He's a really good guy, really good character. He inspires me. Hardworking. Like, I always brag about Colby to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, his business, he does video production, right? So he's been doing video production for over a decade. Mm-hmm. And he has like over 5 stars, or not over stars, but he has 5 stars on Google.
Nice.
Yeah.
And he has like, I don't know, over 50 reviews or something, which is outstanding.
Yeah.
For sure.
And all the clients love him, right? So it's like, I like to work with people that inspire me.
Yeah.
And Colby always inspired me. And so when he took me on a job site, and we were in the Bay Area, and we were second shooting, and we wrapped up the day, like 6-hour work day. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how much you make off this gig? And he was like, oh, I charge them 10 grand. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, you made 10 grand? Like, or you charge 10 grand for like this job? And he was like, yeah. And then like later on that day, it kind of clicked, like, okay, like this is actually the same amount of income like I'm getting, so I can kind of supplement now.
Yeah.
I think this is my time to switch.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I didn't want to like necessarily take a dip in income.
For sure.
Yeah.
Kind of wanted to like do some type of transition.
Yeah.
And when I found out Colby was operating at that level, I'm like, okay, cool. This is the time where I can kind of jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was 2 years short of my plan though.
Okay.
And I can touch on that in a second. But which kind of backfired on me a little bit. But I ended up jumping the gun. And I was like, I approached Colby and other friend Lucas, and I proposed this business plan.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I had like, you know, the whole presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can be it.
Yeah, right. And then they were like, you came up with this in like, what, a week? I was like, no, man, I've been building this in my head for like over 20 years or 10 years, like since I was 18.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they saw it and they jumped on board, and I was like, yeah, we're going to do virtual production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which is a dope concept.
Thank you. Yeah, we're the first and only virtual production studio in Sacramento.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
good.
buddy.
So so then they all liked the idea, and we jumped on board, and now we're just been working together for a year.
Gotcha. That's good. It's funny, on the drive up here, Cam and I, one of the things we were talking about just in general, like we were recently talking to a team of people about like excellence. So when you were talking about Kobe and like essentially what his standard is, and you know, surrounding yourself around like-minded individuals, in that conversation I was telling Cam, is like having a standard of excellence is not everybody's thing, right? The average mind doesn't have it. And I feel that when your own standard is excellence, right? You don't operate, regardless of who you partner with or who you're doing business with, like you don't operate based off of their standard, because your standard is here, right? Mm-hmm. And so I applaud you as far as you and Kobe, and kind of observing you guys today, it seems like you guys make a great team. And so that standard of excellence is super important.
Yeah.
You gotta have that, like that, almost like that brotherly love factor, like especially when you're doing business. Like I know, you know, you see all this stuff on the internet. It's like, oh, don't do business with your friends. And we talk about that a lot because we're best friends and we do. And I think it's really important that hold each other accountable, like to always be better. Like it's okay to be homies, but you also have to understand that there is a peak that you're trying to reach.
There's a line.
There's a line, you know, and you can tell when people have had that talk and people who haven't had that talk.
Right.
And hearing you talk about that, you guys have obviously communicated that, and we're very big on communication, especially with the people that we help with business coaching and stuff. That's where it all starts, is like, are you guys even talking? Because if you're not, it doesn't matter these strives you might make. it will all come tumbling down at some point because that fundamental conversation hasn't been had.
Yeah.
So Omega Cinema, tell us a little bit more about the vision. I know you presented the business plan, to your friends. So tell us a little bit more about Omega Cinema.
Yeah. So Omega Cinema was specifically for Sacramento, in a sense, right? Just because there's a void here.
Yeah.
There's a small group of filmmakers here in Sacramento that really are passionate and driven, but it's a small group, right? And then they get some big jobs. But before, there wasn't the right time to open the company because of the parameters of the local government, right? So, for example, you need a film commissioner in order, when a producer comes into a city and they want to shoot in your city, they connect with the film commissioner, and the film commissioner is kind of like the gatekeeper. They provide the permits, location scouts. Here's the team of grip gaffers, everyone you need, right?
Yeah.
And before, we never really had a dedicated film commissioner, and so in 2019, I came back and poking around in the scene, go to the local film conventions. And everyone was excited because we got our first film commissioner, right? Jennifer West, and she's awesome. Yeah. She comes from LA, and she's really pushing for this. Nice. So now I'm okay, now we got a film commissioner. Now's the time to to jump on this because COVID happened and it put everything in delay, right?
For sure.
But then now it's everything's coming back, and I was now's the time to do this because if we're the kind of the first ones opening the market for film studio space, then we can provide a whole bunch of jobs for people. Right. And then, because really we wanted to create a space, not just for us, but we want to be able to elevate the community with their skills, right? Because it's not just about us. We believe in collaboration, not competition.
Facts. I say that so much. Yeah.
Because the way we see it is the more we elevate together as a community in our skills and our filmmaking skills, then the higher the value the community is, right? And so the market becomes more valuable. We can charge more. So then a producer that comes out of town, they can be oh, there's talent in Sacramento. Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, all the talent is forced to leave because that's where all the jobs are. Yeah. But if we collectively create a space where we can elevate everyone's skills, then it's more jobs for everyone. Yeah. So everyone can eat, and that's kind of how we approached it. Yeah. And so we're always collaborating, like-minded, and really pushing for that. So essentially, our goal is to eventually build sound stages in the Thomas area. Okay. And we are partnering with different companies, and we're going to bring a education element department to it. Yeah. So people can actually go to almost our own not film school, but
like an academy.
Like an academy within us. Cool. And then they'll have real world experience where they can come in on set, be learning, as well as getting their credentials, and then we can essentially hire the best of the best. That's
super dope because you have so many, just kind of speaking youth specific, you have so many youth who are oh yeah, I just want to be a doctor, lawyer, but their skill set is aligned with being behind the lens or being a helping director in that leadership capacity. And I think that having that academy will provide that resource for them where more creatives can be creative, right? Yeah. When we were walking kind of through the studio, you were giving us a tour. I was telling Cam after the fact, I was I've always loved being in a creative space, right? And that's the feel I have here in the studio because it's different when you just go into a space and just, I can come up with ideas, but it's different when you can bring people together, bring creatives together into a creative space to be more creative and provide that value. So I'm looking forward to when y'all cut the ribbon on that, man.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about how hard it was to do film in Sacramento, people just weren't allowed to do filming in a studio like this unless they had permission or from the film commissioner or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, for example, it was hard to get permits to shoot anywhere, really.
Just out and about?
Yeah, one of the main films that really brought this attention to Sacramento was, oh my gosh, I forgot her name, the director that created Lady Bird. She's from Sacramento. Okay. And she was really adamant about shooting in Sacramento, all the scenes, because, tribute to where she's from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was no real way, no infrastructure on allowing her to shoot, so she had to, rogue shoot it.
I was going to say, that's all you hear about. People just, on the streets, doing music videos.
Right, yeah, And so there's a lot of rogue shooting going on in Sacramento, which is it's cheaper, but it's not the right way to do it.
Right. For sure.
And you'll get shut down if you don't do it right. And the goal is to pull the permits and have the right system, so that way everyone makes money. The city makes money.
Exactly.
The people make money. It's all official. And
Yeah.
But that wasn't in place, so it was really hard for her to shoot. And so that's the and other producers, they just give up quicker. But we have such a good location. You know, we're 2 hours from Tahoe, 2 hours from San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a prime location for sure.
Yeah, you know, we have dry areas, forest areas. It's just really good location. So right now it's just a matter of the producers that are coming in, they're asking for studio space. And that's the one thing that she says no to, because we need an actual sound stage.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like you see, like there's noise kind of going around right now.
Right.
That'll interfere with an actual production.
Yeah.
And you need actual sound, like just completely
Gotcha.
dampening.
So you have to meet certain requirements for them to give the green light.
Yes, in a sense, yeah.
Hey, well, you're pioneering that. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, we're trying. So
It always takes one. So earlier you talked about how the early jump backfired a little bit.
yeah.
Tell us about that.
So every year I try to come up with either an idea or a theme,
Okay.
right? That helps me through that year.
Yeah.
And it's usually just a word, or sometimes it could be a phrase,
Okay.
right? Like for example, a couple years ago, I remember, or a couple years ago, my word was mastery, like,
Okay.
right? And then I really studied, what does that mean to become a master?
Yeah.
What does mastery look like? And then I studied some people that were just masters. And what did that encompass? And then tried to apply that to my life, right? What am I a master of?
Yeah.
And so this year it was stick to the plan.
Okay.
Stick to the plan.
Okay.
Right? So the reason why I said it kind of backfired was because from my plan, and hopefully this helps someone that has maybe like a similar plan or thinking about this idea, was to buy and invest real estate for 10 years, sell real estate, save all the money as much as possible. My first year of being married, there was like a compound effect in my business.
Yeah.
So by the time I hit my 5th year, it really started to compound, and I started to make the most income in my business, my real estate business.
Good woman.
Yeah. And then when I got married in 2020, that's when and then I got married, and so we were both making money together. And within that year, I was able to buy 4 properties, like starting off. And I bought my first one, and then I was just like back to back. And I was explaining to her, because she wanted to buy a nicer house. Gotcha. But I was like, let's buy a small house in the hood, like in the hood, and we can buy a lot more properties, and you don't have to don't worry about what your friends have, because my friends have this nice house. And I was like, babe, don't worry, let's just sacrifice a little bit.
Trust me.
Give me 5 years and I'll buy you whatever you want, like whatever house you want.
Yeah.
So she trusted me, and we were able to buy a bunch of properties. And it was funny because I have some clients that when they would see a house, right, and they're like top of their buying budget, right? Like, hey, I can afford the house payment's like $3,800 and I can afford $4,000. It's just an example. Yeah. And they asked me what should I do? What would you do, Jacob? And I'd be like, honestly, what I would do is I would buy a house in the hood. Yep. I would cut that payment in half
to $2,500.
Yeah, to 25 or $2,500, and I would save the excess and then invest it somehow, and then wait a couple years. Your equity is going to go up, and then sell the house, and then you can buy a bigger house, and then you do that until you get your dream house. Right. Yeah. Your first house is never your dream house, right? And they look at me and they're like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah. This pantry is just so fire.
Yeah, they people just they just don't see it, which I understand. They're not educated on how money works in that sense.
Well, it's like discipline too. I read a book about Neuro-Discipline, and it was all about, it took out the rah-rah of it, and it's from a neurological standpoint, as animals, because we're all animals, we don't enjoy waiting for anything, and it's hard for us to sympathize with the waiting of what we have to do. There was a study that was done. Remember that face app where it made you look old?
Yeah.
So they said that when they used the face app on people, it made them 70% more likely to save money, because now they can identify with themselves as an old person. Whereas mentally you can't do that unless we see it. And it was all about like, because it's the neuroscience of it as far as your brain creating that connection, which most people can't.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were able to do that, like that's like a 1% skill, bro.
Yeah. Well, I think it ties into what you're saying, because I was able to see it through my parents.
Yeah.
Like I saw them do it and I understood, and I was like, okay, cool. And my wife, she couldn't really see it, but she followed me as her husband.
Right.
She
Yeah.
understood. And because later she'd be like, oh, my parents just bought this new house and we're living here. And I was like, babe, but like, do they have 4 properties? Like, I don't think so. You know, they're like, he's working 2 jobs to pay for that mortgage.
Exactly.
You know, like, where's the life in that? You know, you're house poor.
Exactly.
And I would never advise my clients to be house poor, but none of them took my advice because
that's like the American dream is
Yeah.
to be house poor nowadays.
yeah, you know. So I get it's where you live. You want a nice, beautiful, peaceful place.
For sure.
But back to my point was that so I was on track to investing and buying these properties, and then I cut that short by investing into Omega.
Okay.
And so looking back at this past year, you know, starting a business is really hard,
Right.
Yeah.
right? You know, it's just you're in the red for a while. We're just dumping cash into this.
Right.
You know, we're like over $200,000 into this. You know, of our own money.
Oh, that's love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, if I think back, I did the math on the money, I would have been cash flowing the number that I was supposed to be cash flowing, which was $20,000 a month.
Yeah.
For me to then open my business, and then I wouldn't even have to worry about like the cash flow of the business to keep me alive instead of my properties will keep me alive.
Got it.
And that was the original plan. If I would have stuck with that, I would have been in a different place now.
Right.
Gotcha.
Because now I'm like focusing on the business so much,
Yeah.
and I don't have as many properties as I
Right.
need to supply.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where I mean, like I kind of jumped the gun too much.
Gotcha.
Got you. That's so I retire in 2.5 years from the military, but I tried to take the example of the people that had come before me. So when COVID happened, you know, everyone was online. So like I dove into LinkedIn really hard, and I met all these people who were retiring, and I listened to all their struggles. Like, oh, it was hard finding a job. Like, oh, I wish I did this. Oh, I wish I did that. And so I always tell people I started my transition like 5 years ago, just making connections, figuring out what I wanted to do. Like I thought I wanted to be a recruiter when I got out the Air Force, decided, no, I don't want to do that. I have more of a passion for development, like developing people. And so, and that's when me and G got reconnected, started doing our thing. And so, but part of that is like this plan. So buying a house in the mountains like me and my wife did, kind of the same thing is like there were all these different properties, like, well, which one's going to be most equitable, but that we can afford even if we never Airbnb it. Because the plan is obviously to have these other properties to do events and things, but if we couldn't do any of those things, can we afford it? And still put away money to invest and still do things if we want to do things as a family. And it's those sacrifices like you're talking about. Whereas in my previous marriage, unfortunately, like I would be talking about a lot of those things, but they weren't being listened to. And so when we did finally separate, there was a very monetary like lapse of what could have been if we would have just stuck to like the sacrifice early so you can prosper later.
Yeah.
And it's hard for a lot of people to realize that, you know. I talked to my mom about that the other day. I was like, hey, you got to save some money because this and third. And she's like, but I like, and I say, you know, don't buy the seltzer water that's super fancy from Nugget for a minute.
Right.
But I earned that. I get that you earned it. And I think that's where people get wrapped up in is they assume like, oh, because I work hard and I've earned these things, it's a necessity to buy these things so that I can prove to myself that I earned it.
Yeah.
Just by knowing that you can buy it, that's all that matters. Like,
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, I fell victim to that too when I bought my first Corvette. I was like, oh, I earned this, you know,
Right,
it was my dream car. I'm a Corvette guy.
Okay.
yeah.
And I was like, I earned this, right? And then as years passed, I realized I was like, oh man, like this is because money's a tool, right? It's
For sure.
It's a tool. It's a
100%.
resource. And so I was like, my money's wrapped up in this car. It's not making me money.
Yep.
Like, let's put things in perspective here. So I sold the car, and instead of the car, I bought land.
There you go.
And that land, that money that I bought, I put $30,000 down, and it multiplied into like $90,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and that was the most I've ever made, not even working.
Right.
Yeah.
The most money I've ever, which is trippy. Like the most money I've ever made was not from my own time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
is just from leveraging the tool properly.
Right.
Yeah.
And
knowing
so,
the tool. Yeah.
you know,
So I know we're gearing up to close out. Omega Cinema, next 5 to 10 years, or even 1 to 5 years. Like what does that look like for Sacramento, or if the vision is expands outside of that, what does that look like?
Yeah, Omega Cinema next 5-year plan is to pretty much be a beacon for creativity and a place for people to explore their talents and create beautiful films, right?
Yeah.
And to as well as a collaborative environment. And part of the business plan that we have for the next building that we purchase is there's going to be actually different backdrops, and it's going to be like a gym set mentality to where you actually pay a subscription.
Okay.
And so accessing like the first level, right? So it's going to be a collaborative space where like someone's going to be coming in and you go to the gym to get stronger, to get better, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. This gym network shop studio is where like you go and you say, oh, like there goes Hector over there. Like, dude, he does sick photos. Like, I'm gonna go talk to him. Hey, how'd you do this? Like, oh, I do my lighting like this. And you bring your own model and you get your 2-hour slot and there's music playing and it's just like a collaborative space, right? Where people network and that's kind of like the space we want to create on top of the film production behind it.
Right. Yeah, I look forward to that. So I have a 10-year-old. His name's Darren. He's into everything, but like he's taken a liking, and I just hired him as my videographer and photographer. But so over the last year, I have a friend out here in Sacramento who's into filming, who's been kind of like mentoring him a little bit. So some months back, every Sunday, they will hop on Zoom, or the 3 of us will hop on Zoom, and he would just kind of coach, Darren, because he has this vision of creating a Netflix a film. And so, we're trying to get him to understand the fundamentals. And so I'm looking for more opportunities to put him in those environments, in those spaces, and attend those academies in Omega Studios or Omega Cinema. So, but with that being said, man, everything you have going on, I definitely look forward to seeing more of the growth, and looking forward to seeing, personally, my family, attend some of the workshops or academies and things like that. So
Absolutely.
I don't know why, when you were talking about the different spaces, in my mind, I was imagining like someone on like this tier, and there's just a window, and it's like, if you want to get to Hector, you got to pay the other tier. and then the glass just fades away.
Yeah, that's funny.
I like those ideas a lot. I love creative spaces, man. I do a community workspace, and I really enjoy that. It's like I walk around and I talk to people like, what do you do? Like, oh, well, there's photographers, and there's a guy who's building a a multimedia company in general. So I see him sitting at his desk, and he'll pull out his keyboard and do stuff, or he'll pull his mic over, or I see him editing video. And I've always been into video, but I've always been in a lot of things. I got ADHD, honestly. But like, we have the nice camera for our podcast, things like that. But I've kind of like you, I've always felt like that's a space I've really enjoyed. But I also like talking to people, so I chose talking to people.
Yeah.
And so I hire people to do other stuff, or I do as much as I can to really still enjoy that space.
Yeah. If you're a creative person like you, that means you're the child that survived.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the child survived.
Yeah.
So before we bounce, just one last recap of where people can find you, Omega Cinema, as well as what you guys offer for a potential client.
Yeah, we offer high-end podcasting, such as like this set right here. And you can find us on IG Omega Cinema or online at omegacinemainc.com. That's INC. And we provide an array of high-end portfolio filming, commercials, as well as podcasting and studio rental space.
I do want to ask one last question. Okay. I haven't asked it on season 2 yet.
Okay, oh, that's right. Oh, you haven't.
So I haven't. So my last question, actually, let me say this. Very grateful for your time, right? Meeting you and your team. Appreciate you inviting us into your home and space and all that. Look forward to connecting more with that. Guys, if you're in the Sacramento area and you're into filming, you're into anything creative, make sure you go connect with Jacob and his Omega Cinema team. With that being said, my last question for you is, so life, love, or leadership? Pick one of those, and if you could just, share your thoughts on any of those three topics for our audience, something that's on your heart that you would like to share.
Yeah. I would say love. Love hands down. Love conquers all. Love reveals truth. And I think all we have in this life to kind of like go back on is the relationships that we have, right? They're that kind of, they become links to our past, right? They're the relationships that we have as friends. You can sit down with a friend that you had a long time ago and you can recollect memories, and he'll have memories or she'll have memories that you don't have, and it's like a link to your past, or you can even build futures together. And that love comes from, naturally you become close and you love for that person. And so I attempt to love people in even creative ways. Like I write letters to people, you know, even my friends. Like,
oh, that's cool.
You know, like I'll write a letter to Colby. I'm not sure if you got a Colby. Yeah, I wrote you a letter, right? Yeah. See?
If not, it's coming.
Yeah. I wrote him a letter. Yeah, you know, I like to write letters to people, even if I see him. I write letters to my wife. I just let them know, like, I love them and I think about them in creative ways.
Yeah.
There was one piece of advice that someone told me that really stuck with me, and when he told me when I was 18, and I found it to be true, like my whole life, right? And he was saying, find a creative way to keep in touch with people and remind them how much you care about them. And that always stuck with me. And he was explaining that, because I was talking about business and da-da-da, and he was like, just go off of that, like base your principles on that as far as like your business relationships.
Yeah.
And later on I realized that the people that I did that with, I came to them with like either a proposal or something, and they were like, you know, all about it. Oh yeah. Right? Because of that relationship that we have, that care. And it's not really about money, right? You know, like
for sure.
I can lose whatever I have because my peace isn't on this earth. It's in Christ. My treasure's in heaven. And that's where my love is. Yeah. And so like all this stuff, like I even tell my partners, it kind of freaks them out. Like I could lose all this, you know, I could lose all this, but my it's not dependent on, my joy is not dependent on this, you know. I get joy from it, but it's not dependent on it. And so ever since then, I noticed that the people I do keep in connection with, it's way easier to just talk to them, approach them, versus like, oh, I remember this guy, he's connected over here, let me call him. Right. Hey, Bob, remember me? Yeah, it's like, what do you want type of thing. Right. You know, you don't have that relationship. Yeah. But that has served me a long way, so. Nice.
Take notes, guys. He just gave y'all the major gem. Can't appreciate you connecting us, man.
I do my best.
I would like to share one more last thing real quick, just because this really kind of, hopefully this might help someone like either younger or trying to figure out what they want to do, right? Because there's so many paths in life. Yeah. When I was studying the concept of mastery, that really put things in perspective, right? If you study the masters in life, they are at such a different level tier that they become so valuable that they can, if we're going back to like money, right? Trying to get money, which is a resource to leverage for the future. Right. Yeah. If we're looking to make the most amount of money, I think there's really two ways of doing it. One way is pursuing mastery, but really becoming dedicated to it. Yeah. Because the masters become so outclassed that their skill set is so unique, they can almost charge anything because they're like true masters at it, and there's no one else that can possibly do it. Yeah. And if you, I challenge the viewers to go look at anyone that's a master, right? And just assess them, analyze them, right? And how much they've dedicated to that. So if you're early in your path in your career, maybe mastery is one of those paths that you want to take, but it's a long path. They're both going to be long paths. For sure. But I think if you're passionate about that, I probably would have done that. Yeah. Because I started late in the game, I chose the other route, which was to find a way to make the most amount of income. Yeah. Leveraging your time. What's the most time input and then income output? Right. Yeah. Right. What's that sweet spot? But also something you like too. Right. But even if you don't really like it, like what's gonna give you the most of that tool? Yeah. And then you learn how to leverage that tool, and then you multiply it. Right. Yeah. And so because I was late in the game, I realized I wish I would have become a master, but it wasn't too late. My mom taught me how to utilize money and to purchase and invest in it. So figure out what that is, you know, for you. Yeah. And if you don't want to become a master, which is fine, then maybe you can use that funds later on to become a master, because that's where my route is.
Yeah. I love that. Definitely appreciate you sharing that.
So I've always been really good at speaking. I've been recruiting 10 years. So like you can drop me in a room and it's happening. But I was telling G is I want to be a master of it though. So like I want to start listening to everything that I'd say. Like eyes closed, listen. I want to study this art of speaking because yeah, I'm good at it, but I want to be a master of it.
Right.
So that's fun.
There's a difference between when you're good at something and great at something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Man, facts.
We could probably talk to you all day,
Yeah.
but I know we all have appointments to get to.
For sure.
But as we wrap up, Jacob, we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You guys, like we talked about, check it out. Like, love, share, comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. We do it for y'all. With that being said, we appreciate y'all. We appreciate your time. We'll see y'all later. Peace.
With life, it's so precious and it's so delicate.
Love. Without love, you don't have either of the other two.
The leadership stance that you take in your life, though, I think is directly correlated to the amount of love you have in your life.